We've been doing these segments called Impression of the Session. We're doing a lot of them. Here now, welcome, State Representative Aaron Pilkington is on the line from District 69. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Before we get into your impression of the session, I'm just going to give you the floor and let you take it wherever you want to go. But can you tell us about how your community's doing? Are you guys staying dry? How's the flooding in your area?
So we've been pretty lucky here in Johnson County. We've had a few areas flood down the Heartland Bottoms. We've had some issues, but I mean, compared to some of the other counties around us, we're doing fairly well. And I have to give a lot of credit to Jess Johnson, our emergency director. He has been doing a fantastic job, and I know he's been working hard, making sure our county's taken care of, and then even helping assist other counties like Pope County. And so I just, we luckily, like I said, we've been very fortunate, and at the same time, we've had a great crew here that's been helping out with our area and surrounding areas.
Good. That's good to hear. Well, let's just let me give you the floor. You take it where you want to go. State Representative Aaron Pilkington, what was your impression of the session 2019?
Well, my impression of the session for 2019 was, I kind of jokingly refer to it as the eating the vegetables session. There's a lot of good legislation that happened. No, I think caught national headlines, but things I think that were good to kind of make the state better. But at the same time, I mean, there was a lot of things I think that I wish hadn't happened. I just wish we would have done a few things differently. And but being one of 100, you can just say your piece and move on with that. I will say, and healthcare is my specialty, and in the realm of healthcare, I think we've done a lot of good things to try to move the state forward. There's a lot of good legislation to try to use technology to help cut healthcare costs here in Arkansas, and us being an innovative state in that way. I had a bill that allowed us to create a pilot program to use ride sharing like Uber and Lyft to take people to the doctor instead of having to pay these large contracts to companies that do transportation that cost a lot of money. Things like that, I think that help us save money, but at the same time, make sure that people get the care they need is an important step for the state.
Did you get pushback on that piece of legislation?
In the beginning, we did. We got some pushback, but eventually we were able to kind of overcome it because the way that we worked with a few of the other current companies, we just said, this isn't. We just wanted to make sure there's no. It's just add the tool to the toolbox, kind of as we said. So, I mean, hopefully, our Medicaid program will realize this is a cheaper option and then exclusively go with that in areas where they can go with it. But, just not completely eliminating those right now was a way to kind of ease into that reform. But, I mean, of course, there's always pushback. Anytime anyone has a contract with a government agency, I mean, they're not going to let that slip away from them that easily.
Yeah. This was also a big session for you. I mean, it's personal, but you got married this session, didn't you?
I did. Yes.
Congratulations.
I was the crazy guy. Thank you. I was the crazy guy who got married during the middle of the session. So that was pretty interesting, but it was great. Representative Justin Boyd and Representative Austin McCollum, they actually spoke in my wedding and read from the Bible at it. So that was really an awesome time to have some of my good colleagues there to celebrate that day with me. And it was great. But my wife she's amazing and a good conservative. She worked for Fox Business before moving down here to Arkansas, and so went to Hillsdale. And
nice.
So she's a true believer.
Well, so and I want to remind everybody that because I asked you about this, I was like, I saw you the next week. I was like, hey, what are you doing here? And you were like, well, we're not. We postponed the honeymoon until the session's over. So I will want everybody to know you didn't get married and then gallivant off somewhere. You put your honeymoon on hold, and so that's the price of public service, I guess. Yeah, that's true.
I thought a lot of people knew that I got married on a Saturday, so I flew up there Thursday night, and then got married, and then we were back in my seat the next week. And then, like I said, we decided to postpone our honeymoon, and luckily my wife was was fine with that. She understood. I mean, she understands, that this is public service and that this is just kind of a sacrifice you have to make. And but I got elected to do a job for the people, and I think me missing a week or two to go gallivant around somewhere else wouldn't be a good way to show my voters, how much respect they gave me the opportunity to be down there.
Well, we're talking with State Representative Aaron Pilkington, and I want to talk about some of your no votes on tax increases. SB 336, you voted no to provide additional revenue for the maintenance and repair of highways. This was a $95 million revenue increase that starts collection in October, going to cost people 3 cents more at the pump, 6 cents for diesel. And then a no vote to continue the levy of the 0.5% sales tax, which is going to be a massive tax increase if the voters vote for it. So what was your reasoning, Aaron, for voting against these bills to raise revenue from the people? And how did you stand up to some of their arguments? Because I know there was a big push to get Republicans to support it.
Yeah. These were, they really pushed hard, and these were some votes that were really difficult to make. I know, trucking being one of the large industries here in the state, I know that they really supported this. And, when you've got someone that uses the roads like this and realize that they're going to have to pay more too, saying that they want this, that's a compelling argument. But, ultimately I'm thinking about what was best for my constituents. And, we're a low-income area. When I thought that this was going to be a lot of increases on how much that they're having to pay, and especially, too, when you're low income, a 3% increase in how much taxes really adds up, especially when you have such low disposable income. So those were kind of the reasons why I felt like it wasn't prudent for me to do it. And additionally, we had, I think Julie Mayberry was the one who had another plan to help with the raising funds in a different way that would have been more financially prudent. Yeah. And, we weren't able to hear that plan on the House floor, which was a shame. And so I think just, giving the House the ability to figure out which plan we, wanted and kind of letting them lay it out there what they think is going to work the best would have been the better way to do it. And so I think that would have just been probably a more fiscally conservative way to do it. And I'd say too, it's always hard when you're voting against something like roads, which everyone uses, and everyone, generally is pretty popular with, using tax money to spend on that. But the reality is I just felt that we had spent a lot of money given to the highway department and then have not been able to see the return on investment that we wanted to see. I mean, a few weeks even before the vote, I remember reading an article that the highway department had given $1 million to the U of A for an engineering building. And, as someone who's watching the people's checkbook, I'm thinking, why are you giving $1 million to another government organization that already gets millions of dollars from the state already? Yeah. And so things like that just, they don't make me feel good about giving a blank check to an organization and just say, here, tax the people some more and do what you say you're going to do without a lot of, I think, restraints on what they can do. And then, too, I mean, just a very solid evaluation of what exactly do you need. I mean, and so that's kind of how I got to my no vote and why I felt like I just didn't feel that at the time it was a prudent decision to make. So. Well,
I think that's a really good explanation. And while we're on the tax situation, you also voted for the $95 million tax cut, which was a standalone bill moving us from 6.9% to 5.9% over the next couple of years. That was a good bill. That was early in the session, really good sign of unity. But then you did have these other bills. You voted against them, but they did pass. And so it's more money coming out of people's pockets. So I'm curious, Aaron, as to your opinion on when it's all said and done, do you think that when it's all said and done, this is going to be a net tax increase on the people after the session as opposed to before the session?
Well, I would hopefully it's been a net decrease, and I haven't seen the latest numbers from DFNA yet, because there's always the projection, and then there's the reality of what happened, and so that's kind of what I'm more interested to see is the reality of those numbers come in. I hope ultimately that larger tax that we gave them in the beginning of the session will show that ultimately there is a decrease in collections. same with the reduction in the corporate taxes that was passed as well. But it's just one of those things we'll have to see. And, and of course, you can't measure just on collections. You need to understand how the population changes. If we get more people coming into the state and so our collections go up, great.
Correct.
But I think by that same notion, though, if anything, that means that gives us an opportunity to cut taxes even more. There was a bill by, I believe it was Representative Ladyman, to do a study about reducing sales tax. We want a high sales tax. And say, task force to see more cuts we can do. But, in my opinion, I think we should have done that instead to look at reducing income tax. And we're sandwiched in between Tennessee and Texas, which don't have state income taxes. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who have said, I'm thinking about moving to this state because I don't have to pay income tax. Or they say, I've got a job that lets me work remote. I love living in Arkansas because my family's here, but I can go move to Dallas or I can go move to Nashville, not pay state income tax, and live in, a larger city. And so, it's something that we realize if we want to compete in our own region, not even, we're not even talking about trying to compete with New York and California here to try to get talent. We're trying to compete with talent next door. We've got to be way more aggressive in how competitive we are. And so, sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No. I agree with you, and I hope we would take every opportunity to reduce taxes more. We talked to a lot of your colleagues, and many of your colleagues have said on the program in their impression, they've said that taxes it does look like it will be a net tax increase based on those DFNA numbers. But what I've also been asking them, Aaron, is were you upset at all that there didn't seem to be much of a discussion on spending cuts, finding the savings elsewhere? And I've used this as an analogy, an example. What if they said, hey, okay, we want to raise your gas tax because we need some money from you, but we need $95 million, but we found 50 in savings, so we're not going to ask you. You know what I'm saying? But there just didn't seem to even be that discussion that was had this session.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, there were things. We did the the homestead tax credit. We increased that as well. And so, there's a part of me that just was saying, okay, I understand we're doing that, which is great, but for it, happy it happened. But it's like we're cutting here, but we're increasing over here, and these things don't seem like they're making sense, because why are we cutting just so we can say we made a cut when we're in fact increasing over here, and it's not, and it's affecting the same people. And I would agree. I mean, with the cutting of the spending, it's always been an issue, trying to find ways to cut. Because everyone comes and says everything they do is essential and everyone's essential, and I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who aren't, but unfortunately there's a lot of people who aren't. And we did things, I think, to kind of make sure that we can make those cuts in the future. But I think rubber meets the road, we need to start doing them sooner rather than later. With the refiguration of the state government, I'm hoping that we'll be able to find a lot of things next session after the dust has settled down over that of areas where we can consolidate and cut. Because in reality, I mean, I think there is a true point when you talk to one agency and they're doing something almost exactly similar to another agency, and you're going, why are y'all doing almost the exact same job? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a good way to do it. And two, I mean, I can't remember what representative said it to me, but he was talking to me about when we were talking about cutting spending. He says, a lot of things come down to personnel, because that's going to be 60 to 80% of your cost in every department. So when you talk about cutting spending, you're talking about cutting personnel. And I think for us, we need to say, where is an opportunity for us to move people to be no private sector employees and no longer government employees. And and honestly, for employees, it's better for them. I mean, they get better benefits working somewhere else, better wages working somewhere else. And I think that's something we should really look at. And there was legislation I did that kind of flew under the radar, but we reformed something called CGAP, which was basically a grievance process that had been established, I think, during the Beebe administration. And unfortunately, it was a huge waste of money for the state to do it, because you had these meetings where someone could put a grievance against the superior or against a coworker. They'd have these long, drawn-out meetings with attorneys, and the state's paying for, 3 attorneys to be in the room with all these other people doing these, hours upon hours long meetings. And, these people came to me and asked me to run this bill, and I said, Aaron, we've got people who are upset because someone yelled at someone else, not even them, but they want to have an 8-hour meeting about their grievance. And I was like, shouldn't HR be doing that? And they go, yeah, they should be, but they're using this process. So, things like that, process improvement's always a great way for us to find ways to save money. Yeah. But it's just, I think sometimes it's changing the organization and then looking at, okay, if 2 people are doing the exact same job, can it be done by 1 person? And, can we find ways to offload people onto the private sector?
Yeah. What were your, real quick, we're running out of time, what were your thoughts on the social issues and the progress that was made there?
So I think we did a lot of good things. I think the trigger bill by Representative Bentley and Representative Jason Rayford, the pro-life one, was fantastic that we did. I think as far as gun legislation went, I was a little disappointed. We weren't able to get the Stand Your Ground bill passed. As you know, I was a House sponsor on both those pieces of legislation. We worked tirelessly to try to get that to where we could get people on board and get to go. And unfortunately, I think the committees ended up being kind of more stumbling blocks for us than the actual floors, because we counted on the floor and we knew we had the votes. It's just trying to get those out of those committees, and just we were, really kind of hamstrung by that.
Yeah.
And so those, as far as those kind of social issues go, that's kind of my impression. I think we did a lot of good pro-life legislation, and I'm very proud of that. And I saw that the latest report came out, and the number of abortions in Arkansas has been decreasing. I think about a 40-year low, which is fantastic. And so I also did a bill in regards to female breast milk, which was kind of an odd one to do, but we have the highest infant mortality rate, and that was aimed at kind of trying to reduce the infant mortality rate here in Arkansas. And so, this helps us set up rules so that a nonprofit can come in here and help the state out. So
I was in the room.
Our local hospitals.
I remember that. Yeah. And to be clear, it didn't regulate like mother to mother, like voluntary exchanges. If with breast milk. So.
Correct. No, it didn't add any new regulation onto any existing thing. So if you're wanting to give to someone else, or I know some people do it on Facebook, they offer it to other people in their community. All that stuff's still fine. This just helps kind of establish for us when to set one up in the state. Because our nonprofit wanted to come and set one up in the state because first we don't, and what a lot of people don't know is we have to import it from Texas. So we have hospitals around here, that are, a lot of them are small and rely on state funding, and they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring that in. So, and we've got a NICU that we run at UAMS that the state pays for as well, and they say they're constantly running low, and it's a constant worry about them. So, I think us just being able to do it here in Arkansas is a way to help us save money. So,
yeah. Well, State Representative Aaron Pilkington, I really appreciate you coming on, giving us your opinion and the impression of the session. And last question, you did hear about the terrible murder of former Senator Linda Collins. I just give you a chance to respond to that when you heard the news.
Yeah, I was devastated. It's weird. I knew Linda Collins really well. We served 2017 session was the first time I served with her and stuff, and I remember she gave this really great speech to a bunch of college and young Republicans who were down at the Capitol one day, and we were addressing the crowd together. And just she showed she had a lot of passion and courage, and it was really nice to see that. And I always kind of really respected her for always sticking to her guns, and honestly, just it's quite a shock. To just have this happen to her, and I seriously still think I'm in shock about the whole thing. My phone blew up, and everyone kind of in the whole Arkansas political family, just could not believe it. So.
State Representative Aaron Pilkington, sir, appreciate you coming on, and be safe, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
All righty. Yes, sir. Folks, we're going to take a break. We'll be back here in just a moment.